Roundup.
Welcome back to UMass Sports Weekly. Here joining me at the table for the Roundup is Joey Saade and JMS, Jesse Mayfield-Sheehan. Guys, thanks for joining me. Here on the Roundup, we usually like to talk about different sporting events that we didn't get to cover in earlier segments. For this one, because it's really fresh on our minds and it is somewhat of a sporting event, we wanted to talk a little bit about the Boston Marathon. As most people would know by now, there was some bombings at the Boston Marathon yesterday, right at the finish line where most of the traffic is for people crossing, people waiting for loved ones to cross, and just pretty horrific event. But we wanted to relate it to more sports terms because we know we do talk about sports, and we felt we could state a little bit of our feelings on it. Now, once this happened, the Celtics were canceled, Bruins were canceled. Red Sox had a day game, so they were not canceled. They're playing today. We saw moments of silence all over the country from all different teams. Yankees will be playing Sweet Caroline today during the third inning. So you're seeing a lot of stuff support Boston. Joey, how does this affect other sporting events? We know Boston Marathon is one of the biggest sporting events in the entire world in a year, but how does this affect other sporting events in terms of people maybe like fearing for what's going on in such large gatherings?
First, Casey, I'd like to say my thoughts and prayers are with the families and those who were affected by the horrible tragedy yesterday in Boston. And my prayers are still with them. I couldn't get it off my mind yesterday. It really hit me hard because, I don't live in Boston, but, I work in Boston. I know a lot of people from Boston. I know some people who are running in that marathon, and thank God they're okay, but it's still never okay to see a tragedy like that happen. And sports always tends to take a back seat when we talk about life. We take off our sports caps, and we're real people here, and these are real people that got hurt, so sports tends to take a back seat. But relating this to sports because it was the Boston Marathon, and the Boston Marathon is widely known not just in this country but in the world as one of the more popular events in the history of the world. It's been going on for over a century. So for that to happen at an event like that, it kind of shows a symbolism and very saddening, and I just thought it was a very, very cruel act altogether. But how it relates to sports, I think it was great to see the country come together yesterday. We saw, a lot of sporting events after the marathon. They had moment of silences at every game. You saw, pray for Boston, we love Boston, around the whole country, not just in the city of Boston. It showed the spirit of not just our state of Massachusetts, but the whole world. Our whole country, everyone's supporting us because things like this do happen everywhere, although they shouldn't happen. And I think that, just relating to sports in general, I think because Boston is such a sports city, and people here, they're in love with sports. We're all in love with sports. It's the reason why we do this. I think one of the big things is that sports can bring people together, and I believe that it will. And you already see a bunch of athletes throwing out, their respects and putting up their money for funds that go to the tragedies, the families of this tragedy yesterday. So I think that sports in general can kind of take people's mind off of this because not only is Boston one of the best sports cities in the world, in my opinion, but the people here, they have so much faith and respect and dignity, and there's no way that this city is going to fall from this event. I know everyone's going to get back, get to things as they were before. So relating to sports, I think things are going to pick up back to normal. The Celtics, the Red Sox, the Bruins, they're obviously going to pay their respects for the rest of the season and probably, for the future going forward. So I think that it kind of gives everyone that up. Everyone was kind of feeling down yesterday, but now they have a feeling that they have to play for something. I think you're going to see that not just in Boston, but around the whole country.
Yeah, but we will be especially seeing it in Boston because it's happening in Boston, and the sports will be what really helps bring people together. It helps. It's like a coping factor. You can escape from it a little bit. But Jesse, what's it like? I mean, it's easy for us to talk about because what is it like when something like this hits so close to home, and you see it's different seeing other teams when they react to their cities. But this is our teams and our players reacting to our city. So what's it like when it hits closer to home?
Well, it's most definitely different. I mean, this hit, like you said, way too close to home. I mean, I'm not from the city of Boston, but I'm from right next to it. I mean, I walk right around the corner of my house and there's Boston. So this definitely hit close to home. And I think a friend of mine, Mark Chiarelli, he put it really well in a blog post that he posted last night. He said, I was so, after the sadness came anger. How could these people bomb my city? How could they injure my people? I mean, a rule of thumb we have in journalism is you don't use terms like we and my. You don't say we when you refer to the Boston Red Sox. You don't say my city when you refer to Boston. But the fact is that those sort of bonds and feelings do form when you get this attached to a sports team or to a city. You can't escape those kinds of feelings. They are there. And that's just the fact of the matter with how we feel about our city and about our teams. That's just how we feel. And that's how it feels with this. They attacked our city. They attacked our people. It could have been our friends. It could have been our families. Could have been any one of our loved ones. I had an aunt who was right near the finish line when it went down, and she could have easily gotten hurt at that kind of incident. It just sends everybody into, not just mayhem, but also a large state of fear. As you see people just crazy trying to text people back in eastern Massachusetts, trying to make sure that they're nowhere near the area. You see people posting on Facebook just saying, everyone I know out there, are you okay? It's everybody out there just scared, making sure that their loved ones are okay. But like Joey said, it's these kind of events that bring people together. You saw so many people reach out to help. You saw, people going straight from the finish line to the nearest hospital to donate blood. You saw first responders coming in and doing such a great job to help people. You saw hundreds and hundreds of people offering up food and shelter for the victims of this tragedy. It was really, it really showed, as cliche as it is, that our darkest days can be followed by our finest hours. And in terms of sports, I think it really shows the way that the other teams have been giving these tributes to Boston. It really shows the way Joey has been saying, sports are a great way to unite us. I mean, they can be, a great way to express emotion, great outlet for our frustrations, and a great way to become a part of something, as I said before, as you form bonds with those teams. But also, at the end of the day, when something like this happens, you realize it's a game. It's supposed to be fun. And at the end of the day, whether you're rivals like the Red Sox and Yankees, even then, at the end of the day, you can shake hands and still be friends. And the sign that the Yankees currently have on their stadium, showing both teams' logos and saying "United We Stand," really says it all. Even with such harsh history between those two teams, at the end of the day, when something like this happens, those two teams are still there for each other. Even with all the harshness between those two teams, they still care, because at the end of the day, like Joey said, we are all people. I think that's what an event like this really shows at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's really great to see everyone come together in support of Boston. Doesn't matter how strong the rivalries really are in sports, they still come together for something as tragic as this. Now, I just want to get your guys' opinions on this because, as we were saying, this is one of the biggest sporting events in the world every year. They get an unbelievable amount of people that show up. And the Boston Marathon, it isn't like a Super Bowl in that it's one of the biggest events in the world, but you're walking through a security gate to get into the Super Bowl. You have to walk through security. Boston Marathon is a 22-mile stretch where you could walk at any point. I understand this happened at the finish line, but it's the prospect of it's hard. It's really hard to secure such a large amount of area. So I want to get your guys' opinion. Jesse, I'll actually start with you on looking into the Boston Marathon in the future, even in the near future, is next year. It's hard to say what changes can occur because they're doing everything they can. But what will the attitude be like maybe towards towards the Boston Marathon next year?
Well, without a doubt, there's going to be an attitude of increased security. I mean, we saw this immediately as soon as the tragedy went down. Other cities, New York, D.C., Los Angeles, all sorts of cities started upping securities at hotels and other large buildings. As soon as a tragedy like this strikes, people feel a need for greater security. They feel scared. They feel if this could happen so close to home, it could just as easily happen to me. So I feel that, at the next Boston Marathon, for one thing, there's going to be a much more somber feeling, I feel, as a response to the events that occurred yesterday. And secondly, I feel there's definitely going to be a feeling of heightened security. There's definitely going to, people are going to feel a need for that. And I'm not entirely sure how they're going to heighten the security around there. Like you said, it's a bit of a challenge, and I'm no security expert, so I'm not going to be able to offer up any solutions myself. But without a doubt, there's going to be heightened security around there.
Now, Joey, in response, because next year's Boston Marathon will kind of be a response to this year's Boston Marathon. It's kind of hard. You have your official responses, but it's kind of hard to respond in a mass grouping kind of way. do you see next year's Boston Marathon drawing less people because of the fear, or maybe drawing more people because of the tribute?
I'm going to see a lot more people there, I believe. I think that's the one thing that you can't stop. You know, whoever set out to do this tragic, horrible event, he set out to try to maybe stop this event or try to, you know, create a fear in the city of Boston and in the entire country. But there's no way that this city is going to stop this event. And I plan on going next year. I plan on going supporting, and I believe that there are many people that, you know, believe the same way. You know what? If the one thing that will hurt us is if we act as if we were feared by this. And that makes the person, whoever set this up, win. And there's no way that's going to happen, especially in the city of Boston. The city has way too much heart, the city around it, the people from Massachusetts. There's no way they're going to let some minuscule person defeat us. And I believe that everyone's going to show up with more support. Jesse said there's going to be more security, definitely. I think not just at the Boston Marathon, but in, you know, events in general. As we saw after 9/11, security spiked up ridiculously. So I think that's going to take place again, not just in Boston, but across the entire country. And I also just see more people getting together and understanding that, you know what, although we may have lost this battle, you know, we have people hurt, some, you know, fatalities, which is very sad. There's no way it's going to stop us. There's no way it's going to stop the American people, the heart that we have. There's no way that an event like this is going to stop. So I see, you know, I wouldn't even be surprised if there was another marathon maybe later in this year just to kind of finish it, because the marathon never ended. You know, they obviously had to cancel it because of the bombings. So I think we're going to fight back, and there's no way that this is going to stop us. No way.
Yep. Like President Obama said, Boston is a tough and resilient city, and so are its people. I agree with you. They're definitely going to fight back.
Boston, one of the toughest cities in the country. This won't be the end of any Boston Marathon or athletics in Boston. It's just another bump they have to overcome. Terrible, terrible bump, but one that will be overcame by a city like Boston. Our prayers at UMass Sports Weekly are with all the families and everyone affected by that, and with Boston. Guys, thanks for joining me and talking about this. And thank you at home for watching, and we'll be back next week with our final show of the year, so come back, same time, same place.